What are you making for dinner, Greg?
Little famous spaghetti with some red sauce on top of it.
Damn, going all out for those kids, aren't you?
Yeah, man.
What's for dessert?
Water.
No, not even any ice, huh?
So no
Just
Boss
water.
Baby. No Boss Baby tonight, though. Not enough Boss Baby.
All right, it is 7:05.
David, you don't know what Boss Baby is.
Well, enlighten us now, Bo.
You guys don't know what Boss Baby is? Well, one, it's the greatest cartoon ever. It's about a baby, and he's a boss, and that's all you need to know.
Sure, we go then. Let's see.
Boy, all right.
Let's see. Oh, what's that? There we go. Okay, so before I get into the slide share, so I don't expect that this is going to take a lot of time out of your night. I do appreciate you giving me some time to go through all this with you guys. It is a part of our requirements from each of the agencies that are kind of overseeing this odd period of time for us, and is to ensure that all of our staff and coaches are have a basic understanding of what the protocols are, what the requirements are, and really probably more importantly what the responsibilities are for the clubs, for the coaches, and then ultimately for the parents and the players as well, which we'll get to. I want to start by saying, look, and we've already as a club been dealing with this. I recognize that not everybody, not every family, not every parent, not every player, not every coach shares the same sentiment that the state does, the health director does, the Kentucky Youth Soccer State Office does, as far as the seriousness, the necessity, or anything else as it relates to COVID-19 and the return to play. Nonetheless, and regardless, it is incumbent on us as both an organization and as professionals, volunteer or paid, and as representatives of this club, to fully embrace and adhere to the policies that we are putting in place in coordination with, in conjunction with, and as prescribed by those agencies, right? And you'll see some of them listed throughout this thing. I have listed all of them in various emails or texts that have gone out. So just again to kind of reaffirm, we are counting on each of your best efforts in being models for what we need to do. Even if you don't agree with it, we need you to be on board with it, really for our liability's sake, and for the sake of our members. Again, keep in mind, for every person who doesn't think this is anything, who perhaps even will publicly tell you that this is all a farce, we have parents and players who still are resistant to getting out there because of their serious concern about their own health and safety. So we need to be considerate of both ends of that spectrum. And we need to operate, again, keeping in mind the guidelines that we have been given. That's, I don't know that I can state it any plainer. David, Bo, Buse, let me know if there's something that I'm leaving out in regards to this facet of how we move forward.
Absolutely not. I mean, the ramifications if things aren't followed properly is, significant, not only for the health of the kids, but for the club in general. So please try to make sure you're following these guidelines as well as possible.
All right, with that, I'm going to jump into the screen share so that we can run through this, the Google Slides. All right, so please tell me that you're seeing a slide that says Healthy at Work, Team Kentucky at the top.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. I'm assuming that this is going to work a lot like a PowerPoint. So if I screw this up and have to go back, I'll go through. So again, as I mentioned, we are working under the guidelines from several different organizations and agencies. They're all very similar. So in the Google Slides, I've kind of put together a summary of primarily the Healthy at Work, which is from the governor's office from the state of Kentucky on reopening Kentucky, and then KYS and their guidelines and their presentation. So June 15th, so Monday, was the allowable opening for what is considered high touch outdoor sports. So we are lumped into that group. I start with this even though we're not starting until the 29th because not much of it changes, as you will see, right? So exercises involving 10 youths or fewer with no more than one adult coach per group. And again, with the caveat here is while following the Healthy at Work social distancing guidelines, those will be followed up shortly. No competition is permitted. This is going to be a recurring theme, right? And this is probably for each of us on the field going to be the hardest aspect of this, not only in our desire, but of course in the kids' desire, because the kids are going to want to play. But throughout CDC, U.S. Soccer, Kentucky Youth Soccer, and the governor's office, it is plainly and clearly and frequently stated that we cannot do any competition. And as we move forward, there are going to be ways that we can integrate socially distanced competition, and we can walk through that a little bit as we get through. So skills training must be socially distanced as well, no touch and low touch sharing. Multiple groups can hold, so multiple groups can be engaged in the same fields, but they have to adhere to social distancing guidelines as well. So you can have more than one 11-person group, 10 players, one coach in a field, but there are obviously some spacing issues as it goes to that. And again, any individual not essential for these activities should not attend, which vis-a-vis parents should not be standing around down on the field. And that's more clearly stated in the
Kentucky Youth Soccer.
In the Kentucky one, yeah. All right, so apparently I have to do this. There we go. Okay, so the social distancing requirements, establish procedures to ensure youth athletes are socially distanced to the greatest extent, limit group team activities, modify workouts, and increase distances between athletes, coaches, and spectators. That's really not even pertainable to this section of return. And then during rest periods or other periods of inactivity, social distancing should be increased and congregating should be eliminated. Right? we'll talk about ideas for that as we move forward. And then again, this second part of this is space-saving athletes at least 6 feet apart on the field during all participation. I know it continues on in different descriptions of participation, but again, that's all participation. This is another key one that has been really emphasized from a tracing standpoint. So again, for those of you not familiar with tracing, that is the concept that should someone later who has participated in an activity with a group, should they test positive, that the health department wants to have the opportunity to be able to effectively trace who they've been in contact with, so that they can notify other people and potentially isolate them so that there isn't a rampant spread of the virus again. So it's important that while we're out there, that kids remain in the same group, and not only that night. And what we're going to look at, we're going to obviously do groups of 10, but we're also going to isolate them in groups of 5, and we will track that. And then the next time that they come back, they need to stay in that same grouping as much as possible. Now, there's going to be some limits to that. You'll see that as we move forward, but it really is going to be important that that the attendance and placement of children is consistent from session to session as much as possible. All right, moving on. All right, so here's where we get into this. All right, so here's where we get into the Kentucky Youth Soccer Guidelines. This was established on June 1st. Again, still looking at what they're calling their second phase. So as you can see, most of this is similar to what the governor's office put out through the Team Kentucky. The one thing is that they have defined the number of training groups. This is 4 training groups per designated training area. In the webinar that Eric and I attended with Kentucky Youth Soccer state staff, it was prescribed a little bit more specifically, because that's 4 training groups per full-size field. So that would be 120 by 75 yard space. So, you know, if you think about where we're training, we typically don't have that much space allotted to us. And so that's why you'll see at the end that this number is going to be smaller for our purposes, at least at the beginning. Ensure that each group has a separate location for their bags and waters, and that's each individual. So the practice group has a space, and then each individual has to have a designated space. And that can be laid out with a cone, it can be laid out with a circle, with an X, with a flag. Just, you know, that they have to have a designated space for them to be putting and leaving their stuff. Again, same as with the KY stuff. Practice is limited to non-contact, individual skills, fitness, etc. Passing activities foot to foot, and no serving from the hands or receiving from anything but the foot. That does change. So that's one of those. There's a couple things that do change in this 29th through potentially July 14th phase, where we can start to see balls in the air. Again, no group activities allowed at this stage. So still nothing that that can be done going ahead, and that's staggering. Okay, so staggered training or start times for training to minimize players arriving and leaving at the same time. So we're not initially going to be as concerned about this because our entire thing is staggered. So when we have a group, we're going to bring that group in at the same time, and then we'll have open time in between for the next group to come on, and the group that have been off. Again, emphasis here, games or scrimmages are not permitted. So 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, anything that has the kids engaging in a scrimmage is not to be permitted. And in this stage, I'll just move on from that because that's going to change in the next stage. All right. So now we move on. So again, as I said, most of the protocols and requirements are still the same. There are a few things that can change. One, because you can now put the ball in the air, you can do some goalkeeper training, but you still have limited physical contact. And really the emphasis here is on trying to avoid physical contact in every situation as much as possible. Here, so in the current phase, they're asking parents and guardians to stay in their cars. Here they are allowed to watch, but have to adhere to social distancing. I will tell you that we are still going to require parents to be off the field and just social distancing from outside the perimeters of the field. And no games or scrimmages permitted, but you can do increased activities. So you can now take your group of 5, you can do some passing patterns, you can do some social rondo, and then you can advance that to where you can have the group of 10 working in, you know, a 5v5 keep away game, but it has to be zone based so that the kids are not having the opportunity to have frequent physical contact. There may be, you know, incidental physical contact where a kid falls into another zone or something, but we have to make sure that we're writing curriculum and applying games that provide minimal opportunities for that to happen. And again, that's emphasized in the last point. Limited physical contact is acceptable in accordance with low touch, medium sharing guidelines. Is determined. I'm not sure where the 1 and the 2 came in there. As determined by the governor's office. Okay, so that's kind of like, so what's allowed. The next few slides then dictate what's required from either the club or you guys or us as coaches, right? So create and distribute protocols to its members. I sent out an email on Monday that included this Google Slides and included links to both the Kentucky Youth Soccer presentation and the Healthy at Work Team Kentucky protocols. I am going to follow up on that on Monday with additional protocols, and then also our steps that we'll be taking to get started on the 29th. So we'll be following up with them. This part of it, not necessarily the insurers, but the facilities where we have to provide insurance and have to provide information. It's been probably one of the most difficult or challenging parts. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of our parents don't understand, especially because they see high schools getting started, they see other clubs getting started. But if you look, most of those other clubs, nearly all of the high schools, own or have specific contracts with the facilities that they utilize. Unfortunately, NKSA does not, as all of you are familiar with. We utilize facilities from a number of municipalities, organizations, and governing bodies. And so it has been difficult at best to get information from them related to what we are allowed to do on their fields, when we're allowed to do things on their fields, and what specific things we have to have in place. And to that point, I finally got contact with someone from Memorial Park on Monday afternoon after 2 weeks of trying to reach them. I got word from Pendry on Tuesday morning. So it's been difficult, which is, again, I know that some of the parents out there are like, well, why haven't we started? Why haven't we started? So yeah, any assistance that you can provide in helping them understand that we have to operate within the facilities that we have, and those folks have to provide us assurances of what we're able to do and how we need to operate. So next, post signs in visible locations. Eric and I are going to be working on this. We will have CDC signs posted at Memorial to get started with, because that's where we'll start. If we move facilities, we will have signage at those facilities as well. So not only CDC signs, just suggesting appropriate behavior and protective measures, but also then exit, entrance, check-in, and social distancing signs throughout. So again, another reason why the decision was made to hold off, because there's a lot that has to go into this yet. Maintain a complete list of coaches, athletes, and league officials. The league officials is kind of getting ahead of itself, because that's assuming that we're playing games at that point. But present to each event at the date, beginning time, end time, name and address, so that, again, should someone, rare as it might be, should someone test positive, we have to be able to present all this information to the health department. Clean and disinfect frequently, touch surfaces on the field surface. So daily, so we will be doing that, and likely in between sessions. Again, you're going to see some of this is going to fall on each of you guys while you're helping us on the fields. Have an effective communication plan in place. As I mentioned, we will be, we've been working with the local municipalities, so we know who we need to contact and how we need to contact, and we'll make sure that we maintain that and we're diligent with that. This is kind of what I led, part of what I led with at the beginning, right? That we have to be sensitive, and this obviously speaks to the parents or players who are uncomfortable, but also we have to recognize that there are going to be players and parents that don't feel like this is an issue. I think we have to make sure that we're speaking with both of those with equal respect and consideration when we move forward. And then here's what I mentioned at the beginning. This is what we're doing tonight, and what I will continue to do. This session is being videotaped. I will have it posted. Every coach is going to have to watch this, and I have a acknowledgement form that each of you will have to sign before you can take any action or any involvement with the club moving forward. Just stating that you have gone through and recognize and understand the protocols and requirements. Be prepared to shut down and stop operations. Buse mentioned, some of the things that are at risk. So we are meeting. We met yesterday as a committee with the COVID committee. So we are taking steps and making sure that we are prepared should that happen. Provide adequate spacing, hand sanitizing. Eric ordered hand sanitizer for the club. And we will have now, like most clubs, and I think probably the high schools are as well, we will be recommending that every player has their own hand sanitizer with them and is using it prior to them getting on the field, after they get off the field, and any time they have to leave the field. So if someone has to go to the restroom facilities, they need to come back and use hand sanitizer. As every one of you knows, it's difficult enough to get every player to bring their ball and their damn shin guards, right? So asking them to do more than what they typically don't do is, it's going to be difficult. And so that's why the club is ordering hand sanitizer. Now, we are going to strongly encourage and emphasize them to have their own, because frankly, we don't have any extra cash to be spending, 100 hours every week on hand sanitizer. And believe me, Buse has been doing a lot of finagling to try and get this for us, and it's not easy to get, and it's not cheap to get. And then develop a relationship. So that's, again, we're doing this. So coach responsibilities. So for all of us as coaches, first and foremost, ensure the health and safety of the player. And really that primarily goes in with making sure that you're following the previous guidelines. Inquire how the athletes are feeling, send them home should you believe they act or look ill. Okay, so so we met yesterday as a committee. We've gone back and forth on this. A number of clubs are just doing, leaving it with the parents. Several clubs, a number of high schools that I know of, specifically here in Ohio, are doing on-site screening, right? So, and 2 levels of on-site screening. Some of them have a checkpoint set up at the beginning, and they're asking them kind of the airport questionnaire, right? You know, how do you feel? Have you had a fever recently? Have you been around anyone who's been exposed? And having them go through. You know, some of them are actually taking, scanning foreheads for temperatures and then tracking that. Others are, like I said, just relying on, all right, the parents have been told, make sure that your child is healthy when they come in here. Where we left it yesterday, frankly, was that we were probably going to look into investing into thermoscans, or I don't even know if that's the correct name. It's just that's how it seems like that should be called. So, and doing on-field testing. Again, I had a couple more conversations today with area clubs, and I'm going to talk to the COVID team tomorrow and just kind of hash that out. So, I mean, it's, right now that's still up in the air, and we will probably have a determination early next week on which direction we're going to go. Ensure all athletes have their individual equipment, so ball, water bottles, bag, etc. And the coach on the field is the only person to handle the practice equipment, cones, discs, etc. And I think most of the discussion that we've had is, we're going to try and limit how much equipment is on the field and in play for the players, just so that there's not as much opportunity for equipment to potentially be shared or contacted. All right, coach to sanitize, clean all personal training equipment before and after each session. When we get to the schedule, you'll see the first 2 weeks are going to be pretty scripted. And most of the equipment is going to be provided by myself. And because we're going to be doing group-based sessions. When we get into the 3rd week, where we're going to open it up to team training sessions, then it's going to be on each of you. And so that's when this is going to really become more prevalent for you guys. Absolutely, all training should be outdoors and social distance. Wear a face mask. And it says when not actively coaching. When you come on the field for us, at least in this next phase, we are going to be required to wear a mask. So from the moment you exit your car until you enter your car, we're going to require all coaches to have a face mask on. And if you need to, if again you're dealing with a small group, while it's still outside and there are other groups, if they can't hear you through your face mask, then you can lower it to give some instruction, and then raise it again. And then, obviously, working to maintain social distancing even for us and our players is going to be important. I don't know why they flipped these two, but so the use of scrimmage vests or pennies is not recommended at this time, given the fact that you're not doing any scrimmaging. You shouldn't need that. I recognize that it might be a good way to identify your groups and keep them in groups, but we should be able to do that just with the separation that we're going to have. When we get into the 2nd week and we're doing more zonal games, we may have to revisit that. And again, how we would probably incorporate that then is that, again, I will be providing all of the equipment. It'll be washed and separated. So we'll have separate vests for each group, and only that group will have it. So they're going to be one-time used, and then they'll be taken out of the mix, and a new set of vests will be incorporated for the next group. And then I will take them all and wash them off. Okay, I'm not going to, this is in here. I would encourage you all to go through it and take a look at it if you haven't already. It's been sent to all of you guys previously. And really, it's going to give you the same things. Obviously, I pulled out and created those slides based on the presentation here, but it will give you some suggestions and recommendations for some COVID-safe training ideas that we're going to utilize some of them and modify some of them for our own purposes. But I would encourage everybody to go through here. All right, so this is the this is where what I was working through, and I've touched on some of this. So how are we going to get on the field on June 29th? Actually, let me go to the next one. So this is kind of what we're proposing, and I'm not, my intent was perhaps to send it out tomorrow, but I think I'm going to wait until Monday because I'm going to send it out to all of the coaches because I want to get some feedback. The sessions are going to be age group based. I mentioned that previously. You'll see it in the slide. David, Greg, and myself are going to be leading the sessions, but we want to have the coaches from those groups to be available as well, so that if we need to step out, we can still have a coach present, and we're not doing, we're not violating any of the protocols that are in place, so that we've got everything covered. So what I would like is for, especially for our parent coaches, to take a look at where your group would currently be scheduled, and if there's a serious issue with that, let me know so that I can make some modifications to the groups. Like I said, that doesn't have to be right now. Just, you're going to get this. I'm going to shoot it out to everybody in an email tonight, and then just take a look at the proposed schedule, and then we move forward. So as you can see, we've got week 1, which would be the 29th, would be at Memorial Park, and we've got it split up 3 sessions per night. It shows hour blocks. The parents will be instructed that they're going to be 45 minutes. So when the parents get this, they're going to see 5:30 to 6:15 for that first group. They'll see 6:30 to 7:15 for the next group. Parents are going to be instructed that they and their children must remain in their car until 15 minutes prior to their session, right? So that they can make their way out and then go. You're going to see how the field is set up, at least for Memorial, and we'll take a look at the other locations. We're still waiting. Again, as I told you, this is some of the difficulty in not having your own facility. We have requested Central Park. We've requested 2 spaces at Central Park for those days. I have still not gotten confirmation from Boone County Parks and Recreation on whether we can have those spaces for those times and those dates. If I do not have confirmation from them on Monday, it's going to be at Pendry Park, because I know now, as of Tuesday morning, that I can use Pendry Park. Like I said, if I don't know by Monday, we'll go ahead and confirm that it's going to be at Pendry Park. And then we'll try to push to have Boone for that 3rd week. Unfortunately, I would love to have done the first 2 weeks at Memorial, but for those of you who are familiar with the City of Independence, they do and are choosing to continue to do a 4th of July celebration at Memorial Park, which includes fireworks that are set off on the field, which means that on Tuesday the 7th, it's going to be littered with fireworks debris. And typically it takes them quite a while. Well, typically they don't finish cleaning it up. We do. We'll go down there and start practicing on it. And the coaches and the players are all picking up firework debris throughout the training session. So as much as I would prefer to have it at one place consistently, we just don't have that luxury. So second week is also going to be group training. Greg and David are working on putting together the curriculum for the program, and it's going to be obviously individual skill based, but we'll graduate because during the June 29th kind of second phase of soccer, we're allowed to escalate some of the activities that we can do. We'll do some social distance rondo, which just means that we're going to do some rondo with internal and external boxes, so we'll do some of that to try and get the kids moving a little bit more, get them engaged a little bit more. We'll do some probably some passing patterns, and then we'll escalate it further in the second week to where we engage a little bit further in the passing patterns and some movements off the ball, and then also try to do some zonal games where we'll engage larger groups of players in play that is still social distance and protocol adherent. And then for the third week, we are going to move to team trainings. And so what we're going to do with that, so as I mentioned previously, for these first 2 weeks, I will have either a Sign Up Genius or a Google sign up where the parents are going to have access to. They will sign up. So there'll be 30 slots available to sign up for this 5:30 session. 30 slots to sign up for each of these sessions, and then the same again for the second week. For this week, it's going to be coach or team directed. So rather than parents signing up for it, the coach will sign up for a slot. Depending on the space, where we're at will determine how many spaces are available for each slot. So just to take Central Park, if we're at Central Park and we get the 2 fields that we want, then we would have the ability to have 4 teams total train within each time slot. So it'll depend on the slot. For Memorial Park, probably only going to open it up if we do it at Memorial, probably only 2 team slots or team spaces available for each slot, so we can maintain the social distancing, allow for proper spacing, and provide you guys with an adequate area to actually run a training session. We are going to ask that the coaches work with David and I, and David, Greg, and I on ensuring that we have appropriate, and for lack of a better term, COVID-19 safe training sessions planned, and we will be happy to assist you in that. If you want to sign up for a thing and then let us know, hey, really like to get some help with a training session, we'll be happy to assist in putting those training sessions together as well. Again, in that time space, we're still going to have to follow the previously stated protocols. So even though we can now progress to a little bit more active, and I am hopeful, but not 100% certain, that we can move to some level of competition by Tuesday the 14th. But until you are told otherwise, you have to assume that you cannot. And so you're still looking at zonal games and finishing games, but it'd be finishing games where everyone has to track their own ball and bring their own ball back and things like that. So some situations like that. And again, that's why I'm saying we will welcome the opportunity to assist you in writing a appropriate training session should you want, but regardless, you will need to have it reviewed by us before we get started. And then still mindful of coaches in masks full time. Players are recommended to wear masks onto the field, to the field, and off the field. They do not have to wear masks during participation on the field, but up to the field and off the field, they should be, not going to be required, but it is highly recommended that they wear a mask. And then hand sanitizing and keeping social distance in between before and after. So
we will have masks for those that do not have access to masks. So
yes, thank you.
We do have some. Obviously, we don't have enough to provide the club, every person, a mask. So just make sure that everyone knows that there are some available if they have no access to them.
So this is kind of what we're looking at, and obviously this is the only one I have right now is Memorial Park, because that's the only one I have confirmed. Well, I guess I could start working on a Pendry one, but so this is kind of what we're looking at, and obviously this is a very rough estimate. Eric and I will be going down on the field probably next week, right, Eric? To start, taking a look at how we lay this out. But the idea being that parents will be notified. They will receive this, this map. It'll be a better looking one, but they'll receive this diagram where they have a drop-off point here, right? And I'll add a little thing. There'll be a drop-off point here. There is an entrance here with a check-in, right? And so whether we're doing scanning or we're just doing questioning, they will check in here. It'll be marked off along the way for social distancing. So there'll be little X's or little points here and here, and then they'll come down. What we're looking at is that they will receive a notice prior to the day before their training session. So if they're training Monday, they'll receive a notice Sunday that will tell them what group they're in and what number they're in. So I just put in numbers in the yellow. Obviously, each of these boxes, each of these triangles will have a number. So kids will come down and they will be assigned. And again, it may not be yellow. I've got to sort out how we're going to mark it, but it'll be your yellow number 1, your yellow number 4. It will coincide with this map so that the parents will know this is where they're going. There will be a map at the entrance for the check-in. There'll be a map here, there'll be a map here, and there'll be a map here, right? The kids will be encouraged to come in. If they're orange, they'll come into here. If they're yellow here, if they're red, they will come into this area here. We'll probably bring the red team or the red group down this way and then down the hill, but not all the way out, because that's going to be how everyone will exit. And what we will likely do is have groups exit according to their grouping. So this red group will exit first and go out, then the yellow group exits and goes out, then the orange group exits and goes out, and once they're exited, then the next group will come in, so that again we can maintain social distancing and stay within the guidelines and protocols that are given to us. And again, I will repeat, I understand that many parents, all players, now most players, and some of you may consider this to be overkill, too much, not necessary. Regardless, these are the guidelines that we have been given in order to get on the field, right? So these are the guidelines that we are going to follow. I hope that I am being plain in my speech and clear in my intent. Again, it doesn't matter whether I like it or whether I think it's appropriate. This is what we've been asked to do. And so as an organization, we are going to adhere to protocol that is being required of us. And we're going to make sure that our parents are, regardless of whether they like it, whether they believe in it, or whether they're petrified of it, we're going to ask them to adhere as well. One of the things that, so I'll go back now to this, and this is going to have to be added to. So age group based sessions, 30 max. So you've seen that online sign up sheet, so that we have an initial tracking, designated entry and exit on site, check in at entry with marked waiting area. Oh, it's not gonna, all right. So now I'm not gonna be able to edit it. I will edit this so that when you receive this tonight, you will have all these things in here. So obviously, as you saw, so we're gonna have designated areas marked out on the field for each group, with each area designating a space for each individual participant, as well as the coaches. I didn't, I mean, I'm sure you caught it, that the coaches are the corresponding blue. So here's the blue squares, here's the blue for the circles, here's the blue for the triangles. Again, this may change when Eric and I get down there. I may be like, you know what, I don't like the way that this is accommodating what we need, so I may change the placement of the coaches. I may change the arrangement of the players. This is just a quick diagram to just kind of provide you some semblance of what we're looking to do. Let's see. Use, what am I missing? I'll add in here procedures for on-field activities. It actually won't be the on-field activities. I'll add in a thing for procedures for pre and post-field activities. Because we don't want, kids are not going to be allowed to get out of their car and go to the playground. Kids are not going to be going out, getting out of their car early and hanging out at, so for specifically for Memorial at the shelter. You know, it's going to be wait. You'll get a notification saying, you know, it's clear. And honestly, I may even try to break that up so that I'm notifying one group. Okay, it's, let's say they're the 6:30 group, or they're the 6:30 group. So at 5:45, as the first group is leaving, I may notify the first group from the second session. All right, you can come in. And so those 10 players come in, and then 5 minutes later, notify the next group, and 5 minutes later, notify the last group, so that they're staggering their entrance as well. And then I think that's use. I mean, walk through, like I said, I can't get out of this and type in, which was what my intent was. I guess I can. There we go. So exit. There we go. Okay. What else did we have, Buse?
I mean, a lot of this stuff was stuff that we covered earlier, just with making sure that, like, even when they're putting their bags down, that they're 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Like in their groups, they don't all just run to the same spot and throw them in one spot. So designated spots for their each person's individual items. You know, we are going to have, like we stated earlier, you know, disinfectant out on the field, that we're going to be, I think that's going to be more of, you know, us as coaches, or even us as staff, to make sure that we're doing that in between each session as well.
All right. So I will get through this. Yeah, I mean, the procedures for on-field activities are not going to include the behavioral stuff that is in the
Right.
first few slides. It's just going to be kind of the things that people will see when they come up. Let's see.
Specific exit and entry times, I guess.
Okay. So I will finalize that. All right, that is the end of the spiel. Any questions, any insight, any concerns from anyone?
Look, it's not easy. I was on the field with a high school team last week, and we were trying to put all this stuff into play for the high school team, and This was with a high school, and it's just not easy. Kids are going to want to, be next to each other. They're going to want to be like it used to be. So it's just really on all of us to make sure that we're really emphasizing to our, not only the players that we're working with, but anybody we see on the field, to really practice social distancing.
Yeah, and it was recommended by one of our board members who is on the COVID team that we add a piece. His son plays baseball as well, and they got a thing from the baseball organization as they're preparing to go back, just indicating, because there's a separate screen that is not in here yet about parent and player responsibilities, and so they sent that out to the baseball programs and just sent an addition just saying, look, these are the responsibilities, these are the expectations for parents and players. If your child comes down to a session and cannot adhere to safe practices, is not able to effectively social distance within the group, they are going to be sat for the remainder of the session and not allowed to participate. We may have to have a designated cooling box, little hockey sin bin that we, especially for as you said, right, it's different. The older kids, frankly, just don't care, right? They just don't, they're like, so it's,
And then
I
the younger kids
struggled
can't
that
help
with my
themselves.
older kids, my older children, right? Is getting them to be mindful of it, and I feel like they are fairly mindful, but it's just tough, right? As you said, they're not seeing each other. They want to be involved. The younger kids, it's not that they don't care; they just don't know how. They just don't know how, and so that is going to be on us to assist in reminding them of what they need to help us with. Obviously, as you're looking at the schedule, we do have our high school age groups on the first 2 weeks. That third week is when they move back to full. Well, they may. Right now, it's likely that they would move back to full practices that third week. Again, our numbers are going to be hit and miss with the high school kids, as Brad alluded to. His 07 daughter has high school stuff tonight, so I don't know how many of the high school participants we'll have in our numbers, but I thought we need to offer something to them regardless, so that we're engaged with them as well. But that third week, for sure, they're not going to be on the calendar. I don't expect any of our high school coaches to be signing up for team training slots in that third week, because you're not going to have any kids to train. So,
Will,
Hey, Will.
oh, go ahead.
let's go, Brad Schmidt.
Ohio Youth Soccer sent out, was it last week, where they said the teams will not be able to travel outside of state. Have you got any input on that for?
Yeah, so so I did get an update on that, because several of us immediately hit them, specifically Buckeye, who Buckeye said the initial thing that was given to me, and actually I saw it first because I think Buse, didn't you send it to me?
Yeah.
Right, was that Buckeye was not going to be able to provide league play for anybody from Kentucky, because we weren't allowed. They weren't going to be allowed to let us come across the river and play. So Ohio South got hit up. They amended kind of that statement. Then Buckeye came back and said, okay, turns out we jumped the gun a little bit. Right now, it's odd. So right now, there was still kind of a stay-at-home order from Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, excluding people from out of state from coming in. Some of that has already been modified, and then it's expected that by mid-July, all of that is going to be lifted. And so it won't matter, because there's not going to be a state stay at home. So then Ohio South won't have a stay at home, and neither will Buckeye. So it'll just kind of, flow right through. So yeah, I actually spoke with a couple of people yesterday afternoon about that, and the expectation is that it's not gonna impact us. So unless something new happens. So,
I figured it was early and that things would change, but I
Yeah.
figured I might as well ask now.
oh no, right, that's good. All right, Stephen.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody saw the tweet from Governor DeWine earlier today. I was a
I'm
couple
not.
minutes late. You might have talked about it, but it says, and this is obviously for Ohio, but Kentucky's kind of been like a week behind Ohio.
Yes, yeah.
It says sports. Phase 2 involves reopening contact practice for all sports. Football, lacrosse, and other contact sports can resume scrimmages and full training regiments as long as safety protocols are observed. The start date for Phase 2 will start next week, June 22nd.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is new.
Right.
And that's it's from Governor DeWine's Twitter, and it's accredited to Lieutenant Governor Husted. So
if we're a week behind, that's essentially the 29th when we would be getting started. But
Yeah.
it sounds like we could then.
Will, let me send this to you.
No, I'm actually on it. I just pulled it up. But then he also followed up. I can never tell whether this is followed up or because it actually has the same hour on it. It says, remember, June 22nd is the day contact practice may begin, but it will be up to local sports organizers and high school leaders on when it is the best time to proceed. Training guidance will be updated soon and will be available on the coronavirus. So, and this is, again, this is, first of all, the difficult part for us, that secondly, our families have a difficult time understanding that we are dealing with an actively fluid situation, and we are constantly being confronted with different messages. And the fact that we do have to deal with two different states frequently that don't always coincide, it makes it really, it just makes it really difficult to manage. And again, while we take our guidance, and you'll see in the thing, right? The number of things I have spent more time on organization websites, CDC, U.S. Soccer, Kentucky Youth Soccer, the Kentucky Governor's Office, Ohio South, and the Ohio Governor's Office. But 6 different agencies all in this area, all saying when you can do what and what you can do when, and frequently not coinciding in either content or timing. Let them know we are doing the best we can. And if we can update our curriculum and provide some 1v1s into, as you said, there's no chance, well, we're not going to be on the field next Monday anyway, but Kentucky's not going to do it next Monday regardless. And then again, as Mike DeWine alluded to, right, where he said local agencies, well, we have to go through KYS first, right? KYS is who sanctions us, right? We cannot afford to be desanctioned by KYS because somebody at the state office decides that we're not practicing safe protocols.
I didn't have like really deep thoughts on this. I just
I appreciate it because I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it, Stephen. No, my hope is that that'd be great if we could modify our curriculum. I think what they're saying is we're still going to have to practice social distance, but maybe in that group of 10, we'd be able to do some 1v1s, 3v3s, some 5v5s.
The last hour a moot point. I was just throwing it there to wrinkle your brain a little bit.
Well, thank you. It's wrinkled.
Right.
You don't have to help. Dude, my brain is so wrinkled at this point. You could probably see it. Okay. Anything else then? All right, so then the last thing before I let you go is I did mention that we will have a, let me see if I do this. Let me see if I can do this properly. I don't know if I can do this. Let's try. All right, so are you guys seeing a Word document?
Yep.
Coach acknowledgement agreement. So each of you will receive this. What I need you to do is print it, complete it, scan it, send it back to me. And before anyone can take the field with the club, they will need to provide me with this. Again, I've got up top, you can just see this is just 4 of the agencies that we have to conform to. So get rid of that, figure out why that's showing up. But anyway, so this will be what I need you to just read and complete, okay?
Are
All
the
right.
players going to have something similar also, Will?
So the players are not. The families likely will. The conversations I've had with other clubs, and again, it varies. Some are asking. So Ohio South is mandating. So for Ohio South, you have to have a form. Kentucky, as of right now, Kentucky Youth Soccer has not, but I heard today that by next week they may have, which is great. By next week, when teams are returning to play this week, by next week they may have a form for the parents to fill out, sent out. So my hope is that they'll have it in play prior to us getting on the field on the 29th, so that we can at least get it out to the parents and get it back, or have the kids bring it with them on the 29th. So if I don't know, and I'm going to have to talk with the COVID group, and Eric is a part of that, and just kind of see. I did talk to a club today who is using the Ohio South one. They're a Kentucky-based club who is using the Ohio South form right now. The conversations in most cases that we've had with our COVID is if we're not required to do something, we don't want to add an additional layer to what we are already having to do. But again, I'm going to call or text Derek at the state office tomorrow and just see if in fact there is something coming down and when it can be expected.
Will, could we do our own? I mean,
Yeah, we for sure can, or we could utilize Ohio South's form and just put KYS and NKSA on it. It's just, again, we're having to do so much that if there's things that aren't required of us, I don't know, unless it's going to make players safer, I don't know that I'm on board with adding one more thing that parents have to do, or one more thing, frankly, that we have to collect and keep track of. Again, we're already going to be doing so much in order to stay within the protocols and guidelines that I think that we're pretty well covered. I don't know what signing a paper.
Well,
Again, now I'm showing mine. If they ask me to sign a paper, we will sign a paper as the club, right? Because that's what they're asking us to do.
the reason I ask, Will, is typically, like, for me, in my legal stuff that I have to do for work, I have to go by whatever's most stringent, whether it be the state or federal.
Yep.
Well, we operate in both Ohio and Kentucky. It almost seems that we would have to follow whatever's more stringent, just so that we can play in the league that we're going to be playing.
Well, to that point, yeah, Brad, you're right on at that point. We may not need it to get on the fields on the 29th to practice, but ultimately, all of our teams that play in Ohio leagues or in Ohio, well, okay, which then is all of our teams. So if you say are going to play in Ohio tournaments, that's going to be all of our teams. So they're all going to have to fill it out at some point. So yeah, I guess you're right in that regard, that it's going to have to happen at some point. We might as well kick it out right now and start working on it. So I will look into it with Derek Willis at the state office tomorrow and just see so that we can ensure that if we're going to have to do something, we might as well get it out next week and get in front of it. So yeah, that's a good point, Brad. Okay, anyone else?
I'll get with Dave with scheduling tomorrow.
All right, great.
Not scheduling, but curriculum.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate your time, and I will look forward to connecting with everybody soon and seeing everybody hopefully the week of the 29th. All right.
Thanks, Will.
Okay.
have a good night, guys.
All right, guys. Take care.
See you guys.